Millions of job seekers know the feeling. You hit apply and then nothing. You try again and again, still nothing. Even in markets with strong demand for talent, applications keep piling up. Candidates feel invisible, recruiters feel buried. Now, both sides are turning to new tools and tricks. Recruiters use AI to sort through hundreds of applications in seconds. Job seekers trade hacks on how to beat those systems. Some even slip hidden prompts into their resumes telling AI, "Put me at the top of the list." But behind this digital game of cat and mouse is something deeper. Human beings trying to break through the noise and connect. So on today's episode, we ask, what will it take to make hiring human again? I'm Eric Glass, and this is Piece of Work, a Dayforce podcast. So how did we get here? One word: volume. The age of online job postings and one-click applications has changed the math of hiring. The result? Recruiters are screening more applications than they can manage. And most of the systems built to solve this problem were created for efficiency, not people. The strain shows up in the numbers. Time to hire drags for weeks. Resume spam is flooding inboxes. On LinkedIn alone, applications are up more than 45% year over year. And trust is breaking down on both sides. In a survey from Corporate Navigators, 61% of recent job candidates said they've been ghosted after an interview. Recruiters report being ghosted by applicants too. AI has made it easier to fire off resumes and just as easy for systems to reject them within minutes. Expectations keep rising, but satisfaction keeps falling. Technology was meant to solve these challenges, and it still can, but when speed is the only goal, the human experience gets lost. Candidates risk being screened out before anyone takes a real look. Recruiters spend more time managing systems than making connections. The question is, what can we do about it? To start things off, I wanted to understand what it actually feels like to apply for jobs right now. For that, I spoke with Yazin Joseph, a freelance UX strategist and designer currently searching for a full-time role. Yazin's been navigating the same automated systems and crowded job boards that so many candidates talk about. And I wanted to hear what that experience is really like from the inside. Let's start by painting a picture for our listeners. What does it look like and feel like right now to search for a job?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And to answer your question, it's very competitive. At times can be what can feel like one-sided. It takes learning and putting yourself out there to really be successful in this job market. So overall, I'd say it's very competitive.
And to just give it another gauge on that, how many applications, ballpark, would you say you've sent out?
I would say in the beginning it was, a smaller number. I would say it was maybe around 20 or so a week. I started to not get as many responses as I anticipated. So then I upped the number a little bit, maybe to 30 or so a week. And, got a few responses, but I took a step back and said, okay, well, if I'm not getting what I'm expecting, maybe I need to improve something. I need to improve my resume. I need to, better communicate my value. So for a while there, I kind of held back and said, okay, you know what, let me do some work and really try to make my, my resume, my online presence a little bit better. So I worked on that for a while. And now I would say I'm even more narrow. I'd say that I'm focusing more on, quality over quantity. And I would say that I'm more now around maybe 10 to 15 a week.
Got it. Okay. A lot of activity. And
Absolutely.
how are you seeing, maybe speak to the balance of where automation is sort of playing in that experience?
I first got this sense of it when a lot of the responses were, they felt like a template. And even the times that I would receive them, 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not regular working hours. So, it kind of gave me a hint that these are probably automated. This is probably a system that's going on in the back end. So, I realized that it is automated. So that was another sign that putting resumes out there, I, maybe need to keep that in mind, and make sure I have maybe the keywords and make sure, I'm getting through that ATS system more effectively. So
Yeah, so I was going to ask about as sharpened the focus of your skills and experience, and is that fair? You saw some better progress as you sharpened.
definitely, and the strategy changed a bit too, right? I did a little bit more research, and what's the company that really aligns with my skill set, that aligns with my values? Is this a company that I really want to work for? And get kind of out of that, desperation. It's like I'm looking at a career, not just a job, right? So, doing more research, finding out who is the hiring manager, maybe sending them a message.
So let's talk about AI. What's your experience of AI in the process, both maybe in terms of how you have used it, engaged with it in that process, maybe some of what you were just describing. Again, back on that automation side, um, is there anything you're noticing? Maybe, of course, we talked about automation, but is anything you were able to sort of discern, more specific to where we see kind of AI in this process?
AI, I've implemented into my strategy now, and it's helped me build my resume to where it is today. And essentially, what I did was, ask AI to help me improve my resume, but ask me questions that are specific to me that will help me build a very strong resume. So instead of just putting in this resume and saying, help tailor me to this position, I'm saying, let's build an experience. Help me even understand more things about myself. And they're asking me personal questions. AI's asking me personal questions. And now I'm using this to tailor this resume that really is speaking my language. Help me to understand what my unique value is. So that alongside with reaching out to hiring managers, to people on teams that I'm looking to join, all of these things have helped me to combat automation from the hiring perspective.
Let's talk for a minute just about peer sets, sort of friends, others that are in similar space. What's the view there? They sort of share your perspective. Are they feeling the same sorts of challenges? What do you hear from peers?
It's definitely a mix, but I try to keep it a point to reach out, because again, in this market it's very competitive. It can feel, you know very daunting. It can feel like it's not worth it, and it can lead to you applying for roles that you really don't want, but you're getting desperate, you need a job. I think having that community. So I make it a point to reach out to, some of my classmates. Yeah, a lot of them are feeling the same way. It's very tough. It's very difficult out there. But I always try to, plant that seed of encouragement and optimism, and that, hey, the program that we did was great. We learned a lot of great things. And it's a matter of time. It's a very tough time in the market. It's very competitive, like I said, but very fitting quote, right? Tough times don't last, but tough people do. So I try to be that encouragement, with my classmates or the past classmates.
Oh, amazingly well said. And where are you on your hunt? Like,
Yeah,
what's the real time status?
right, right. Yeah, so currently, since my program, I've been, in the market, searching for a role. And like I said, it began with very, very narrow, and then it went to very broad, number of applications that I was sending out. And now I'm into the space where I feel I've gotten my resume and my portfolio, my online portfolio, to a really good place. And, that's taken networking, finding mentors. So where I'm at right now is I'm still looking for a full-time role. I'm still looking for that role. Throughout that time, it's been, some time that I've been sending out applications or working on my digital portfolio and my resume. I've iterated every time, right? So if, the interviews that I have gotten, um, I'm following up. I'm asking, okay, is there something that you can give me that I can work on, right? Is there is there something that you really liked? Is there do you know? I ask for that feedback, and sometimes I don't get it. but sometimes I do. I've gotten it from, one or two hiring managers or recruiters.
Well, let me ask you maybe one more. And you shared some of that, some of this one. I'll lead into it, which is just based on your experience. What's one or two things employers can do to improve the recruitment process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the implementation of AI, I think it's a tool and it helps every role or helps everyone do their role a little bit better, right? They're more efficient. They can get their job done a lot quicker. What used to take an hour, maybe for hiring managers, now takes 15 minutes, right? And you can't be mad at that. Every role you should be looking or trying to learn how AI can make, your job better, right? Because that's exactly what it is. It's a tool. So my message to employers or hiring managers, recruiters out there is, is some balance. If, let's say, you're receiving 50 applications or 100 applications, and it's AI or automation is helping you narrow down, on the 5 candidates or 10 candidates who have the keywords that are, the perfect match to the application. Maybe if they have two or they have three and not all of them, they might still be a good candidate, right? They still might have something that's very valuable to offer. So, with that time saved, and I hope I'm not asking too much, but, with that time saved, maybe you can take one, two, three more applicants and still offer them an interview, right? And still have that conversation. One, what you're going to do is instill more confidence in this pool of candidates who are applying, and they're getting that automated message at 3 a.m. saying that, unfortunately, we didn't select you. But offer a few of them. I'm not saying all of them, but offer a few more of them in an interview just to see and have that conversation with them, and it could really probably do wonders.
Hearing Yazin talk, you can sense his optimism and persistence. It's incredible to see. So much effort goes into kickstarting his career, only to be met with overwhelming silence. It made me wonder, what's it like on the other side of that equation for the people actually doing the hiring? How are they managing all that volume, and what do they risk losing in the process? To find out, I reached out to Kirsten Krug, Executive Vice President of Administration for the Kansas City Chiefs, to get her take. Okay, well, let's dive in. So as a sports franchise, you must get an incredible volume of applicants. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, Eric, everybody loves winners, right? And so when we put something out, we typically will get anywhere between 300 to 5, 6, 700 applicants. And, some of our jobs, we want that, like for our game day staff, the people that are working in the stadium on game day, really helping us keep the stadium as beautiful as it is. But there are other jobs that we don't necessarily want those 500 applicants because, in fairness, as a good recruiter and as a good HR presence, you really need to look at every single resume. There are pros and cons to having that many applicants apply for jobs that you are only looking for one person to fill.
And how has that changed over the last decade, just in terms of that volume? And as you said, I mean, nothing beats a winning brand and a winning team.
I think we have a brand a brand marketing role right now, and I think the hiring manager had it out there for maybe 2.5 days and immediately had like 250 applicants. So it goes pretty fast. I will say, additionally, there are times where we have to be very careful about leaving something out there too long. Then you're in a situation where you do have, hundreds and hundreds of resumes. The other thing I would say, I don't think it's I think it's sports in general too. I think that sports has this appeal to candidates, and I think that when you're coming out of college, you've been probably competitive in your college career. You're there for a reason, and I think that the appeal of working for a sports franchise is always there. So, listen, it's not going to be just the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be every NFL team, the MLB teams, the NWSL. They're all going to have the same volume, just because I think that it's perceived as being fun. And it's only when you get here and you realize this is a lot of work. In today's world of applicant tracking systems, you just are inundated. And, if you think back, and if I go back, 30 years ago when I started in HR, I mean, we used to get envelopes with resumes in them. Now, because of the volume and how easy it is to apply for jobs, we do probably get a lot more than we really need. And you want to be fair, and you want to make sure you're looking at everyone's resume. But I think because it's so simple to apply, I mean, you can go on LinkedIn and apply to jobs, right? And you may not even be qualified for that job. So I think we're seeing a little bit of burnout probably on both sides, both on the recruiter side and the applicant's side. Recruiters not being able to get through everything, and applicants applying for things that they probably really shouldn't be applying for.
There's so much volume now on sort of both sides of the experience. What would you say feels most broken in the hiring process today, both for candidates and recruiters?
I think we suffer a little bit from an over reliance of the resume. Um, and the resume is important, and fact checking the resume is important, because you can see some embellishment out there, and I think you want to put your best foot forward on your resume, but you also want it to be factual. But I really, in my time, have found that a lot of the jobs nowadays that people are applying for, you can train people up in those roles. If I find someone who's absolutely a perfect fit based on their resume, but they don't feel like a good fit for the workforce and the culture, and then I have another applicant that is a tremendous fit for the team, and I can tell they want to do more, they want to be more, I'm going to opt for that individual. Because in today's world, most roles you go through on the job training, and you're going to learn the majority of the job through that training system.
It's so true, and I frankly say this to my own teams quite a bit. Right? We can train, we can coach you up, we can really on kind of any dimension of the job, but that real fire in the belly, right? That real, like, what's getting you out of bed, what's getting you fired up, right? I mean, that to a certain degree, you got to figure out. You got to try some things that maybe didn't fit as well as you thought. Then try other things that you really feel, and then find that intersection, right, where you can kind of unlock both, unlock your energy and your passion, and bring your skills to bear in there.
Yeah. And on the flip side, for the candidate, I really think they should feel empowered to ask those questions, right? They shouldn't come in and be intimidated to ask the hard questions of the employer. In today's world, an employer is not just a job anymore. And especially in the sports industry, they'll be spending, 12, 15, 18 hours with these people, sometimes on game day, that they're working with, and you have to make sure that they're comfortable and they understand the expectations. So the job is sometimes the social life. The job is sometimes you end up giving advice to them. You're being the mentor, you're being the counselor. Our employees will eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner here on game day, so we're fueling them. So I think it's important for the candidate to feel comfortable to ask those questions, like, what are you going to do for me in these times of needs? It's easy when everything's going well, but when things start to get a little rough, in the employment and employer employee system, you've got to be able to address those too. And candidates have to feel comfortable to ask those questions.
Oh, absolutely. Is there anything, maybe a little bit on the flip side, is there anything, sort of when you think about recruiters, that are, sort of potholes, so to speak, or um, mistakes, again, in this sort of high volume landscape that we now operate in, that they really can't afford to make, that can sort of derail the process, perhaps, or get you on the wrong path when you're trying to find the right person to roll?
I think rushing. You talk about false starts in football. I think we talked a little bit about that. I think when you false start in recruiting, you're rushing into an applicant. On the flip side, from an applicant's perspective, you don't want to false start with them by delaying it, and having the resumes and their application out there and not responding to them. So I think both parties can make those mistakes that really kind of derail the whole process.
Maybe sort of related, how do you avoid filtering out what could be really strong candidates, because you have, if you've got a really strong system, you got a lot of rigor in there. How do you make sure you're not filtering out what could be the perfect candidate?
Yeah, I think you have to pay really close attention to the filters that you have in your applicant tracking system. But at the end of the day, you've got to put your eyes on it. I know it's a grind. Anybody that has been in HR at some point has probably done recruiting. That's just one piece of a good human resources department's processes. You've got to look at it, you've got to read it, and you've got to pay attention to it. And I think we've all been in a position where we're clicking through resumes and you might say to yourself, okay, I need to stop. I need to take a break. I need a Diet Coke. I need something because I'm not giving to this person what they deserve. And, I think that human touch is really important and really reading into what someone is saying, within their resume and what they're telling you about themselves and their experience.
And maybe on that topic of experience, I wanted to dig in there a little bit more because we've talked a bit in this conversation about the importance of communication, the importance of how you show up. Are you finding that's evolving a bit? There's more openness to what experience that you may have looked for at one point in time, but how they are kind of again showing up with maybe a different mix, being a little bit more open because you surely see that across different industries, right? Different views now on having a degree, not having a degree, what schools it come from or not, right? And so it sounds like you're seeing this evolution in your space as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, organizations in general are getting smart about broadening the scope of experience for each role. Although we might be hiring you as, let's say, for example, an accounting role, maybe an accounts payable role, maybe they're cross-trained in payroll. Maybe they're cross-trained in, some strategy and analytics. I think everybody's getting smarter about making sure that we're not just going so deep in one discipline and we're getting that broader experience. And that's a really important thing to put out there on your resume and in your applications that although I'm not an expert in this space, I have been cross-trained and I have experience in payroll or something else. And I think organizations are getting smart about that.
I think you're spot on. And I think that also relates really, really well in the context of internal mobility, right? When you think about, that those sort of areas of cross-pollination or, you see having worked with somebody in maybe a particular function and, you see some extraordinary capabilities and you go, boy, that could really, over here. So how do you think about internal mobility with the chiefs and inside your organization?
Very near and dear to my heart is our seasonal assistant or intern program. And I will tell you that almost maybe everyone but one individual on my staff was an intern in this organization to begin with. And for me, it's like a 6-month interview. You have the opportunity to see someone. You're not spending just a 45 minutes with them, right? You're spending 6 months with them. I think that's the best way to really get to know someone and experience their total package as an applicant. So we will bring people in to those roles, and some of them end up leaving, but they are the first person, and they are at the top of the pile when we do have an opening in our organization. We'll always say, "Hey, didn't you have a great intern in corporate partnership? Can I, interview them for this role?"
Let's shift gears. Well, it's not a total shift of gears, but let's talk a little bit more about AI. We can't get out of this conversation without talking about AI. From your perspective, what do you think is the right way to be using AI in hiring and recruiting?
Yeah, I think it needs to augment the process. I don't think it needs to completely take over the process. I do still believe that you've got to have face-to-face interaction with candidates. I think that's going to be almost impossible to replace. You need to be able to, sense someone's energy and enthusiasm and experience their style. But I think there are definite ways when it comes to some of the more cumbersome activity with recruiting and onboarding, and even just employee relations. I think there are ways to augment the processes and make them more efficient for you. And I think applicant tracking systems that screen can really help with that as well. But I really am a firm believer that there are just some things that are going to have to be face to face. There are just some things that, it's not going to be able to pick up. And you've got to be able to really have that face to face experience with candidates.
When you think about then where AI can make the biggest positive difference in the talent acquisition process, do you think it's to, I guess in a sense, peel away as much of the process and the effort that can and ultimately will be automated to prioritize that, sort of face to face, or are there other areas that you think will see it really make a great difference?
I think you said it perfectly. I think the energy needs to be put at the last stages of that applicant tracking process and the applicant hiring process. And I think really focusing on that last few steps of bringing someone in, that's where the energy needs to be. So if we can use it up front to help us get through the volume, I think that's where it's best utilized.
Are you seeing yet any shifts in the candidates where you can tell, like, wow, you're coming in pretty well researched. You're actually really, thought through some things that, normally we find, a candidate doesn't get all the way there kind of until they sort of know us and they're inside the organization. Are you seeing any shifts in that?
So I'm not seeing anything that's alarming. What I would say is I think cover letters and resumes are a lot more efficiently organized. I think that skill sets are much more eloquently expressed. So I think from a candidate perspective, I think a lot of them are really getting smart about how to use AI to really kind of hone in on what their skill sets are. I don't think they should be afraid of that. Just make sure you proofread it and you know what you're putting out there and that it's true.
Yes, yes. I will give you an anecdote. This might have been coming out of internship into a very first job, which I spent a lot of years in communications, public relations, and I had the resume that don't make it more than a page, and make sure you got the statement, whatever the pithy thing statement at the top of what you want to do in the world, and so I had this like really like stared at every word of whatever, be a PR specialist and whatever. But inside of public relations, I left the L out of public, which spell check will
Oh,
not catch
wow. It
because it's
wouldn't
a
catch
word.
that.
And nor did I see it because,
Ugh.
the amount of times I wrote public relations on some resume or whatever, and I walked into the interview and we're chatting. She started laughing and she takes out her pen, circles the thing, and just 180s
Kinda
the
like
piece of
shoves
paper.
it back
Yeah,
across
and
the
just,
table.
just the slow push,
Mhm.
and so mortified. But then, in a moment like that, just had to laugh, had to go with it. I don't know how I ended up getting that job. I mean, surely because there wasn't 500 candidates
Pretty
trying to
impressive
get it.
fit then, huh?
Maybe it was the energy and enthusiasm I
Yeah,
somehow
maybe that
maintained
was
while she was
it. Maybe that was it.
like,
Wow. I mean, that's just crazy. But that's a great example, like kudos to that hiring manager. They didn't let that get in the way, right? So good for them. But that's a perfect example of how things can just go really south really quickly.
listening to Kirsten, I was struck by how much care goes into hiring, even when the process feels one-sided. For her team, every resume represents a person they might one day see in the hallway. For Yazin, every application is a door that just might open. Both sides are working hard to connect. Both are dealing with the same noise. So how do we move forward? First, technology should help us see people more clearly, not just more quickly. The goal should be to make it easier for hiring teams to zero in on the right candidates and give them a great experience from day one. Second, AI can give us back something we've lost: time. If it handles the volume, we can use those extra moments to listen, to notice potential, not just credentials. And finally, we need to recognize that candidates are changing too. They're coming in with stronger values, sharper questions, and a clearer sense of what they want from work and from the people who lead them. In a way, both Yazin and Kirsten are saying the same thing. connection still matters most. Because if we post it, they might come. But if we connect, they'll stay. Thank you for listening to Piece of Work. I'm Eric Glass. If you've enjoyed the show, let us know on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.